still have that little child inside of me that all I ever wanted to do was go fast. So I'm Clay Millican, 6-time world champion, driver of the Parts Plus Walmart Top Fuel dragster. Well, I got to tell you, it's a tough way to make a living. I love my job, absolutely. The moment I get to put that helmet on, go out there and stomp on that loud pedal, all that is incredible, you know. But my true job is taking care of all these people right here, you know, finding partners, keeping those partners. That is truly my job. You're looking at a guy that I jokingly say I barely graduated high school, and that's kind of true, really. All I could think about when I was in school was cars, and I loved going fast, absolutely loved it. I was a bracket racer. I bracket raced for years and years and years, and I'm giving my life story pretty short here, but I got a job at a food warehouse. I drove a forklift for 11 years in a food warehouse, and how I became a professional race car driver was I became friends with a young man named Peter Lehman, and his family owned the Felpro Gasket Company, extremely large gasket company, largest in the world at the time. And he bought into my dream and gave me the opportunity, basically taught me how to go out and find sponsors, secure sponsors, partners to work with. And I quit my forklift job in 1998. So I've been doing this for a long, long time. And it is, like I said, a tough way to make a living, but it's one of those things that my mom always said, if you want to, you can figure it out. You've got to have the want to, and I've had the want to. I still have it. I still love what I get to do. And, you know, you never know, you know, this is a story I like to tell all the time. You never know where that sponsor's going to come from. People ask me this all the time. How do I get sponsored? Well, I got to tell the truth, and I did this for a couple years when I first quit my job, because I quit and did not have any income. Basically, I lived on credit cards. That's what I did. I lived on credit cards, which is a bad idea. Cold calls don't work. You know, the chances of that are slim and none. I'm not saying they don't work, but it's like hitting the lottery if you can cold call somebody and get a deal put together. But somebody that you know, or somebody that you know knows somebody that may work at a company that you might have a good idea for them to go drag racing and spend some of their marketing dollars out here. Perfect example, I got a couple that I use. One is Parts Plus. They've been the primary sponsor of my car for the last 11 years. So the race shop that our team was based in had lost sponsorship, and essentially we were almost out of business. And the landlord who we rented the building from said, you should contact Parts Plus. And I'm like, well, I don't know anybody there. And he said, well, I do. So he connected me to the vice president of Parts Plus. We put a deal together with them. We had some ideas that worked for them, and they've been with us for 11 years. So that's a good example of knowing somebody that knows somebody. You just don't know who that is. So, you know, you got to tap your friends and their friends, and if you want it bad enough, you can figure it out. I quit my job and essentially spent 2 years living off of credit cards and any savings that me and my wife had, you know. The opportunity came about with Peter Lehman, and, you know, we were doing it out of his pocket initially, so, you know, I wasn't making a lot of money, but I started figuring out how to keep the bills paid from racing, and probably had already won a couple of world championships, and at that point kind of got the confidence of like, you know what, this is going to work, and this is something that me and my wife, you know, we talked about a lot. We lived in a little bitty tiny house. We had 2 kids, and I'm racing for a living. She had a normal job through all this. I do want to say that she was like the breadwinner. You know, she could help us keep the lights turned on essentially. But after I won a couple world championships, sponsorship was good, things were going on, we decided to build a new house. You know, so I think at that point, and that was 17 or 18 years ago, that we felt comfortable enough with me racing full time to build a house. You know, and we did that. And there are countless times where I thought this is done. You know, where sponsorship played out, and you didn't have anything in the pipeline that looked like was going to happen, and somehow, some way, I was able to keep it going, you know, and it's been a lot of changes, you know, different team owners, different people that have kept me employed essentially, and I always kind of joke, I don't know if it's from my driving or my talking, one or the other, you know, I've been able to keep a job out here, but I always try to treat everybody the way I want to be treated, and like I had said earlier, you never know who that next person is that can help you elevate your racing career, you know, so you just have to think about every person that you meet might be a person that can help you, you know, so always be a good person, you know, be yourself. But there's been plenty of times where I thought, this is it, I'm going to go look for that forklift job again. Well, you know, initially it was really hard. My wife took the majority of that burden. Again, you know, I had 2 kids, she had a job, and she's a tough woman. You know, she put up with it, she dealt with it, especially the first few years, because I actually drove the tractor truck, you know, to the races, helped put everything up, did all that. I've done everything that it takes to do this because we didn't have a big team. You know, it was initially me and one other guy. That was it, you know, and so the travel part is the worst part, no doubt about it. I mean, the travel gets old. Before we started this interview, I've got my dogs here, and I have a motorhome now, and I drive to about half the races, which is awesome, you know, but it's still travel. But the thing that really happened was in 2008, my wife, I convinced her to quit her job, and we truly are a racing family. You know, so my wife travels with me to all the races. We bring our dogs, and you know, but it's still, that puts even more pressure on making sure that you're able to keep your bills paid. You know, because she was our security blanket in the early years of doing this. You know, even if I didn't have a job driving, she was able to pay the light bill and pay the mortgage and that sort of thing. But you know, the travel definitely gets old. You know, the motorhome life, I love that. But even that, you know, if you got back-to-back races, you find yourself driving hours and hours and hours so that you can make it to the next town. You know, we're a bit like roadies, you know, like big concert tour. You know, there's a pile of buses and motorhomes in this parking lot, and they will leave here and they'll go to the next race. You know, we are part of that. Now, a little bit of prima donna driver comes out with the longer trips from the Memphis area. You know, my motorhome travel is about 12 hours, and then me and Delta Airlines are very friendly the rest of the races that are further than that. But no doubt about it, travel is the worst part. The lucky part for me is my wife gets to go with me. You know, we're not one of what I like to call, and if you follow the motocross world, a factory team. You know, the ideal job if you're in the motocross world is to get one of those factory rides. Well, that's what I consider, you know, the Colettas and the Schumachers and Forces that are out here. That's a factory job. They got every part and piece, all the shiny bells and whistles. They make the majority of their stuff in-house, everything from blocks, heads, to even their chassis. You know, we're not one of those teams. You know, so we go out and take care of everything like it's the only part we got. We take care of our parts, and we love our parts, and we do the best to keep those parts healthy and alive for more runs than some of those factory teams. You know, I've never been on a factory team. You know, I've had the opportunity over the years, but our team is very family oriented. We try to take care of the people that work on this car. We know their kids, if they got kids, we know where they live. You know, we text, we talk, where I think a lot of that with the factory teams is not necessarily the case. But, you know, when it comes to the parts and pieces, we got good stuff, we just don't have as much as those guys do. And, you know, and I have always driven, you got to treat the throttle pedal like it's attached directly to your wallet. Well, I don't own this car, and I don't, you know, really pay these bills, but I know enough of how this thing operates. I know the budget, I know how much it's spent, so my foot is connected to my wallet. In this case, it's actually Doug Stringer's wallet. And there's a lot of drivers, not a lot, there's a driver aid out there now that's all the teams use that really helps. These cars can be extremely fast and be on fire. They can have, you know, a cylinder out, but it's still ripping right down the racetrack, you know. And so I've always driven with radios. I communicate. The guys can yell at me to shut the car off, and in the last couple of years they come out with a crew chief box. If he sees something wrong, he can push a button that'll shut the throttle. That helps save money, and we rely on that a lot now, more so than the radios, to protect those parts. Again, you know, especially if it's qualifying, if you got a cylinder out, if you're not in, maybe you leg it on down through there. But if you're already solidly qualified, a factory team, they will probably go on and drive it to the finish line and chunk the rods out of it. Our team, Mike's going to hit that button and shut it off. You know, you pick your battles, and your battles are really on race day. You know, we don't really push the button a whole lot, but we will do things that some of the teams probably wouldn't do. If I'm ripping down through there and the other car has smoked the tires, obviously I don't know that. Mike might yell at me to shut it off, you know, and so I might not run it all the way to the finish line. I'll click it off a little early. You know, those are the kind of things that we do to take care of our parts, to make sure that we're ready to go, whether it be the next round or the next race. But we got good parts, just not as many as some of them. I tell people and we get into some funny conversations about this. Setting in that dragster, I typically like to get in the car and ready to go 4 pair ahead of when I go. So I'll get in the car, which means I got a couple minutes. I like to get in, just get comfortable. And other than the radio chatter, which is a little bit, that's kind of like my quiet time, and you know, I'm just in the car. That's my office. You know, I'm very comfortable there. That car's built around me, and I will sit there sometimes, and especially like I'm the next pair of cars to go, and there's, you know, whoever it may be, Doug Coletta, let's just use for an example, or Antron Brown. They're going down the racetrack right in front of me, and I'm like, wow, I'm out here racing those guys. You know, this is crazy that this is what I do. So I get that a lot. And another thing about sitting in the dragster, which is really not pertaining to your question, but you get a different perspective because you're sitting really down low, and people kind of forget you're in there. You know, we got all that titanium and roll cage around you, and it's fun to just observe, whether it's fans, like especially in the water box before they start the car, in the grandstands, just to look around and take in what I'm doing, you know. And a lot of times you see funny stuff. You know, you might be sitting there and people come take pictures of the car, and then they realize you'll see a funny look on their face because they're like, oh dang, you're already sitting in there. You know, they didn't realize you were there. Or it's just a unique spot for me, you know, because again, it's comfortable. It's my office. I've made thousands of runs in a Top Fuel car, but I still have that little child inside of me that all I ever wanted to do was go fast. I honestly never really thought about doing this, or never thought it could happen, I should say, of doing this for a living and doing it full time. And it certainly never crossed my mind to go out and win races and win championships, because the first time I ever saw one of these Top Fuel cars go, all I could think about is, man, that's so awesome. It's so fast. I want to do that. And that kid is still in me. I'm an old man now, I'm 55 years old, but the excitement of not only watching them, but then to get to actually do it is an incredible thing that has never went away.
Noise here this weekend. I mean that in a big way. Like that, 3.82